Hello, everybody. Welcome to Undeclared Bajor, a Star Trek. You know what? I have Star Deep Space Nine written. That's my problem. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Undeclared Bajor, a Star Trek Deep Space Nine rewatch. My name is Fletcher. About to say hello is Data.
Hi.
Today we're going to recap, discuss, and rate Season 1, Episode 14, The Storyteller. Alternate title, Off Dalrock.
Okay, I like it.
I was going to call it, Tell Me a Different Story, Please. But I felt like that would tip my hands too much about my feelings towards the episode. A quick note on spoilers, in case our rewatch is your first watch. Expect full spoilers through this episode, of course, and an appropriate minimum of minor spoilers for later in the series. For example, when it turns out that Dax, O'Brien, Kira, and Bashir were all Cylons the whole time.
That would have been a show.
This episode originally aired May 2nd, 1993, between next-gen episodes The Chase and Frame of Mind. Two very interesting episodes.
Yeah, those are. The Chase.
The Chase
I like The Chase a lot. Frame of Mind is so weird and crazy that I don't know that I can say I like it. I appreciate it.
It doesn't help that there's multiple Riker gets trapped in a fake reality episodes.
Yeah. That's true. I hadn't actually thought of that. There are at least a couple of those.
Yeah, it is a very weird one, though. And I was, reading the plot synopsis because I was like, did they ever actually figure out what was going on with that? Or he just got kidnapped by an alien that was messing with him or something? But
yeah, I think that's what happens at the end.
Anyway, it doesn't have the fun part like in the other one where he tries to get Data to do, complex calculations.
Yeah.
And he's like, you can't. Don't even try.
The real Data's way better than that, loser.
Yep. And then, Worf can't remember what battle he got his scar in and stuff.
Yep.
Anyway. Yeah. Now, what was that episode called?
That one is oh, geez. I remember that the kid making the illusion or whatever is called Barrage. But I don't...
Sure.
Let me see.
He shows up in, a Halloween costume for...
Yeah, the ridiculous... Yeah.
1 second.
That episode is called... Where's the Future Imperfect is what that episode is called.
Okay. So that's a good episode. That and The Chase are good episodes.
Yeah, The Chase is real good.
Frame of Mind, kind of a weird one. Yeah. Anyway, let's recap this episode, which I shall try to get through with a bare minimum of groans and sighs. In a seldom used station log voiceover, Sisko tells us that he has been chosen to mediate a land dispute between two Bajoran factions, the Paku and the Navat. That's right, viewer. Land dispute mediation. Are you hooked in yet? Meanwhile, O'Brien, apparently assigned to pilot a mission to Bajor, tries to weasel out. His motives becoming all too clear when we see that his passenger on this trip is Dr. Bashir.
Although his reasoning is completely valid. That he's I am chief of operations of this station. This job is to ferry a doctor on a shuttlecraft from here to Bajor, and I'm like, you want me to be a chauffeur instead of staying on the station where I am chief of operations?
Yeah.
Why?
Why not get Dax to do it? She can fly a shuttlecraft or a runabout. She's not even in the episode.
Yeah, or Orion suggests hey, can I just get this guy who works for me to do it? He's a really good runabout pilot, and he's not the chief of operations.
All right. Although that guy's an ensign, so I don't know if he works for Chief O'Brien.
Yeah, that as chief of operations, his relationship with people who also work in operations is unusual.
The rank situation is
But I was 100% on his side with why is Sisko insisting that O'Brien is the driver for this mission? It's kind of strange.
Right. Well, because he's the main character, and we need somebody to be the storyteller. Anyway, they go off together to be in the episode's title story. But first, let's get to this land dispute story, so we can get that out of the way. Kira and Sisko go to the airlock to greet the Paku representative, who turns out to be a young girl. Sisko and Kira look at each other like, what? Her name is Varys Sol, and she is the tetrarch of the Paku. a position apparently inherited from her father, who was killed in the occupation. And a word that also implies there's 3 other tetrarchs out there somewhere.
I didn't think about that. That's true.
So maybe the Navat have a tetrarch, and then there's 2 other groups that have a tetrarch. Who knows? At the negotiating table, we learn that the river that historically divided the territories of the 2 factions was diverted in the Cardassian occupation, putting some formerly Navat land on the Paku side of the river. And this is a real thing that happens, by the way.
Oh, so, yeah.
If you ever look at maps of the Mississippi River, it's like the state borders follow like where the Mississippi River was in like 1850, and then like there's all these just like loops and little like islands of state territory like on the other side of the river.
Yeah, it's true.
Quark comes in to serve drinks, calling Vera Sewell a little lady, which causes her to throw her Trixian bubble juice in his face. So, pro tip, maybe if you don't want to be called a little lady, don't order a Trixian bubble juice.
Well, she probably couldn't order booze, so...
Yes, that's like the only non-alcoholic drink that Quark has.
Although, I don't know, would kids be allowed to drink synthahol? Because it's like, it doesn't get you drunk, so...
Well, they're always very vague on if synthahol gets you drunk or not. Like, sometimes they play like it gets you drunk, but it's like kind of a safer, tamer kind of drunk. I don't know. Good point, though. Good point. Meanwhile, Jake and Nog are sitting on the bridge above the promenade, throwing nuts at snakehead aliens. Jake wants to go play baseball, but Nog counters by correctly pointing out that baseball is the most boring thing in the universe. Odo comes by and tries to get them to move, but they just go back to what they were doing 1 second after he leaves. That's when Nog spots Vera Sewell and immediately falls in love. Jake and Nog go to Vera Sewell's quarters and awkwardly introduce themselves. We're kind of the unofficial welcoming party around here, they say, welcoming themselves into her quarters.
Yep, just stroll right in.
Yep, just push on right past, go get on that couch.
I feel like this girl would have some, like, guards or people helping her out as, you know, the leader of this group. But
well, sometimes she's seen hanging out with that kind of tall guy.
Yeah.
Which I assumed was her aide or guard or something, but it's never addressed. And I guess he doesn't share quarters with her. Maybe his quarters are next door. But yeah, you'd think there'd be, you know, the Tetrarch would have some kind of security standing outside or something. I don't know. They offer to give her a tour of the station and do some wormhole watching, and she accepts. Meanwhile, Kira pays a visit to Quark's bar and orders a Star Drifter. Luckily, Quark already has the cool blue plus yellow equals green mixing bottle right in his hand. When Quark asks about negotiations, Kira says, better make it a double. Cisco summons Varys to his office to see if he can get her to come to reason, but she is ready to go to war over the land, apparently. She goes back from there to hang out with Jake and Nog. She shares her predicament with them, and Nog attempts to teach her the fundamentals of trade.
Yeah, like, he's like, do they have anything you want? And she's like... Wait,
what?
I can have things that I want? And I was like, what did you think you were doing here? If this wasn't a negotiation where you're barter, like, did you think that you just came here to be like, nope?
Negotiating is being like, I'm keeping the land until they just give in and let you keep it. Was her tactic.
Yeah, I guess.
Jake talks up his dad as a very trustworthy person. Later, Varys is in her room staring at a map of the river, when Jake and Nog bust in and say, and I quote, "Hi, you want to do something?" Grinning and wringing their hands like classic Disney villains. Somehow she is not tempted, but she does ask Nog for more Ferengi advice, as he might be onto something with this trade idea. Nog teaches her the 9th rule of acquisition: opportunity plus instinct equals profit. This seems to help, and she decides to come with them on a mission to steal Odo's bucket. Which, I don't know how exactly this is supposed to be funny. Stealing Odo's one possession, but...
Like, Nog is like, this will be so fun. And the other two are clearly both doubting that it will be fun.
All right.
But they're just like, all right.
Nog's obviously got a little bit more going on, though, so...
And it's such a bad idea to... Use the secret security rods that you've taken from your uncle to bypass security stuff on the station, which, that's dumb. Like, the best possible situation with that is you're going to get your uncle in trouble. But, okay, And then let's break into the security office. Surely there won't be anything bad that could happen from that. And then we'll steal the one thing that Odo owns. And then Nog is going to fill it with oatmeal.
Yep.
And I was just like, why did anyone else come along? Like, she asks Jake, like, are you sure this is okay? And I'm like, no, it's clearly not okay.
Obviously, it's not okay.
Like, that's kind of the point, is that you're breaking in and stealing. And Jake's like, well, we're not really stealing it, which is not an excuse in any way.
And the whole time, just keep in mind, she is like the president of her people. So you'd think a cooler head would prevail in this situation, but obviously not.
It doesn't seem like she's had a lot of training in leadership at all.
Yeah.
So I don't know why she's in charge, even if it's like she doesn't have somebody helping her run things or something. I don't know. But every time this stuff happens, I always think back to like that previous episode where people are just like, look, Commander Sisko, if it was me, I'd be finding a different friend for my son than the Ferengi kid.
Yeah. Yep. When they go to the security office, they find the bucket, but Nog trips and spills some kind of goo all over Jake, prompting Jake to, I guess, assume that he's killed Odo or something. But then Nog's like, psych, it's just oatmeal. We didn't accidentally kill Odo. Then they all have a good laugh. Except for Odo, who walks in and catches them.
They just stand around laughing, like, haha, wasn't this so hilarious? And, like, not recognizing that you're in direct view of the entire promenade, and also Odo might walk in at any moment, since he clearly is not in his bucket. If you were going to break into security and steal something, you should abscond quickly, is the thing. You
need to grab that bucket and get out. And, I mean, there's no way he doesn't have, like, security cameras on that bucket.
But... Yeah. And then to make matters worse, the timing is so bad that Odo comes in and they run out, and here's Commander Sisko, just standing directly outside the security office.
He has to administer discipline to the Tetrarch of the Paku, while also engaged in negotiations with her.
Yeah.
Varys goes back to Sisko for advice, but admits to being afraid of looking weak if she makes concessions. Sisko tells her that part of being a good leader is knowing when to make compromises. Later, they are walking together in the promenade on their way back to the negotiating table. Varys has agreed to cede back the land in exchange for trade access to the river, or whatever. She passes by Nog and Jake, and gives Nog a kiss on the cheek, right before Nog and Jake are dragged away by Odo to clean the oatmeal from his office.
That's fair.
I'm sure somebody learned a lesson in that story.
Maybe.
I guess she learned how to negotiate. Anyway, now for the main story. Bashir and O'Brien set off on a medical support mission on Bajor.
Because the entire village is in danger of dying, is what they've been told.
Right.
They need the doctor right away.
Yep. Bashir asked what was the nature of the medical emergency, but was only vaguely told that a whole village was in danger. I like to use the phrase, the nature of the medical emergency.
Yeah, there's no doctors on Bajor, I guess, that can help.
Well, you know, I can forgive that. Like, they're obviously in some remote part of Bajor, and the Federation is here to kind of, like, help with that kind of stuff, so... I'll let that slide. On the way there, Bashir, riding high on his successful self-insertion last episode, looks forward to getting to know Chief O'Brien better. He tries to strike up conversation with O'Brien, insisting he call him Julian instead of Sir, but O'Brien deftly dodges. They arrive at the village and find that there is no large-scale medical emergency, just one old man dying of old age. However, they are told that this man, the Sirah, is vital to the survival of the village. While in bed being examined by Dr. Bashir, the Sirah takes O'Brien's hand and cryptically remarks that he was sent here by the prophets.
Let's just be glad that, because at first he's like, oh, Bashir, are you the one who was sent? Like, because he sees the doctor. He's like, are you the one? And it's like, no, not you. It must be the other one. And I was just like, let's be really glad that, like, Bashir was not the one that he picked randomly.
Yeah, bullet dodged there.
Because,
whereas... Can you imagine if he, like, marched in, like, those hot ladies?
Yeah, exactly. Like, O'Brien is, like, fighting this every step of the way. Like, no, I don't want to do this. I don't want all these gifts that you're giving me. I don't want to bless your babies. I don't want hot ladies ready to, like, jump me at a moment's notice. Bashir would 100% be all on board. He'd be taking the presents. He'd be taking the girls. He'd be, like, walking around blessing people left and right. People don't even want a blessing. He's just like, bless you. And they're like,
it would be worse than Nagus Quark.
It would. It really would.
Outside, Bashir says there's nothing he can do for the Sirah, but the local magistrate says he must, because a monster called the Dal'Rok is going to come attack tonight, and only the Sirah can beat it. Bashir and O'Brien immediately leap into action, contacting Deep Space Nine and the Bajoran government to arrange emergency aid and evacuation for the endangered village. No, actually, they just stare at each other and shrug.
Let's talk for a second about how weird a place Bajor is, where you can just have a village out here where a giant monster shows up once a year and nobody cares. And apparently this has been happening for a long time, like generations, because they're passing from Sirah to Sirah. So all during the Cardassian occupation, big monster shows up once a year to try to kill the village, and nobody outside the village knows or cares about it. I'm like, somebody would call somebody. Like, this is the one situation where you're like, hey, the Cardassians should show up with their weapons, and maybe they'll be able to help us.
It just must be such a remote village that, like, they're practically on their own or something like that.
Well, and apparently so, like, the other two, the Paku and the whoever, the Lorax or whatever, like, they're just, it's like, oh yeah, they live out there all on their own in, like, some of the harshest land on Bajor. And so we're just dealing with, like, various factions who are living in the middle of nowhere on this planet.
It seems like Bajor is not that much more advanced than, like, modern-day Earth. In terms of, like, you know, there's regions that are, like, richer or poorer, and there's regions that are at war, and there's remote villages where monsters attack. So, that night, a smoke monster comes out of the woods, as predicted, and begins attacking the village. The Sirah gets up and starts saying stuff like, the Dal'Rok thinks we're scared and weak, but we ain't scared.
We ain't afraid of no ghosts.
Yeah, we ain't afraid of no Dal'Rok. The villagers all start to chime in with, yeah, Dal'Rok sucks, boo Dal'Rok, and the like. They all start emanating rays of light, which seem to beat back the Dal'Rok. However, at that moment the Sirah has a heart attack, and the magic light goes away, allowing the Dal'Rok to start tearing shit up in the village. Luckily, the Sirah is able to get back up and coach O'Brien through the magic story, and the villagers are able to magic light the monster away. However, when it's over, the Sirah immediately collapses dead. He joins Ivan the Terrible, Jack the Ripper, and Cedric the Entertainer in hell. O'Brien is immediately hailed as the new Sirah. The next day, the village comes to the Sirah's old house to offer O'Brien gifts of food and hot young women. It's apparently good to be the Sirah.
Yeah, no joke.
Bashir is clearly delighted that he's in this story and not the land dispute one.
He's even like, man, I'm so glad I brought you, Chief. Like, if it had just been me, I would have been like, oh, I can't help you, and I would have left.
Yep. When the gift givers leave, Bashir asks O'Brien what he intends to do. O'Brien says, it's simple. We kill the Dal'Rok. O'Brien goes around the village tricording everything, but finds very few clues, other than some extra neutrinos laying around.
Well, yeah, and the night before, he was, like, all scanning it while it was attacking, and it's like, there's nothing there, like, literally. And Bashir's like, is it a hologram? Like, no, there would be a power source if it was a hologram. There is nothing there.
Yep, what a mystery. Hovath, the old Sirah's assistant, comes to see him. Rubbing his stomach in a way is unclear whether he's sick or it's some kind of come-on. But suddenly he pulls a knife and tries to stab O'Brien. Bashir and O'Brien disarm him, and O'Brien says, and I quote, now you mind explaining why you tried to kill me?
See, here's another bit where I'm just like, we know, and maybe we don't know that much about it yet, that O'Brien is like an experienced, like in combat.
Right.
Yeah, he's been in wars and stuff. Yeah. So this like rural backwoods guy who spent the last 9 years studying how to be Sirah should have no chance of overpowering him, but he very nearly does until Bashir shows up to help, who also probably kind of sucks. I mean, maybe when he went to Starfleet Medical, they had some, hand-to-hand training sort of things that he went through, but this guy should not be able to like.
Well, I mean, we saw in that Dax episode that he is not a good fighter.
That's true.
Like when he punched that guy and wound up knocking himself down.
Yep. Yeah. He like
the force of that guy's face on his fist.
Yeah. I forgot completely about that. But yeah, he like falls down and like gets knocked out or something by him punching some. Yeah. Okay.
And maybe O'Brien, I don't know. He's just gotten soft, being a mechanic or I don't know. Anyway,
being in the transporter room on the Enterprise all these years.
Yeah, just punching the energize button over and over every day isn't enough exercise. Hovath says that he's supposed to be the Sirah, not O'Brien. He explains that The Syrah uses a piece of an orb to create the Dal'Rok as a sort of unifying exercise for the village. It's necessary to tell the story to focus their energy and fight it off. He says he was supposed to be the new Syrah, but was shamed when he screwed up the story and some people got hurt. This is confirmed when the magistrate comes in and sees Hovath wearing the Syrah robes and throws a fit.
It's interesting that this is the one Star Trek show where you can get away with being like, oh yeah, the giant smoke monster is magic. Because we have a magic rock, and so when we defeat it, it is also magic. Like, in no other Star Trek show would that fly, because the entire thing that happens in like a lot of Next Generation episodes is like, oh, they're claiming this is magic. Well, we'll show like the devil, like when the devil shows up in that one, and so it's like, unless you count Q, I guess if you count Q as magic, then it's maybe sort of the same thing. But I'm just like, they would not allow this in like magical smoke monster that just shows up and the thing is, at the end of the episode, the status quo is maintained. Yeah. They don't do something so that the magical smoke monster stops showing up and murdering people every year. They're just like, oh, okay, it'll be fine.
Yeah, that's what I've written down next is, instead of throwing the orb fragment in the garbage and declaring the Dal'Rok dead once and for all, O'Brien decides to carry out the farce of trying to fight the Dal'Rok. Naturally, he sucks as a storyteller, but Hovath steps in and saves the day, enabling the villagers to do their weird, shining light thing. Thus, he regains the respect of the villagers and becomes the new Syrah, which Bashir and O'Brien figure was probably the old Syrah's plan all along.
I don't know how anybody can be as bad as O'Brien was at telling this story. Like, he gets up there and goes, once upon a time, there was a Dal'Rok.
And it was bad, and the villagers were good, and something happened.
All you gotta do is get up there. Like, I don't know how the first guy failed so badly in the first place when he had the Syrah there backing him, and everyone knew that the Syrah was behind this guy. I don't know how he screwed up, but it can't have been as bad as O'Brien.
I mean, it's not that. You just gotta all gather together and just like yell boo at the Syrah or at the Dal'Rok, and it'll go away.
All you gotta do is stand up there and be the hype man. It's like, the Dal'Rok wants to kill us. The Dal'Rok. We can beat the Dal'Rok. We do it every single year. And, and people gotta be like, yeah. And you're done. Like, it's not a difficult job. Easy. I don't know what he was training for 9 years to do this job for. Yeah. And then failed.
I think they were just hanging out, like, eating all the fruits and vegetables and you know, making it with the hot ladies and stuff.
Well, yeah, and that's funny because, like, absolutely right. You got to assume that since that is one of the first things they do when O'Brien becomes Syrah, you know that old man Syrah just had a rotating door of ladies showing up.
He was exploiting that, no doubt. He was a pervy old man. Just because the magistrate's like, okay, let's we gotta give our finest young women to the Syrah. Obviously, that's the normal thing with the Syrah. So,
and I read on the wiki that this was originally the script was a Next Generation script, and I feel like it makes so much more sense as like a planet that you visit once and then never see again than it does as like a part of Bajor where they have the smoke monster that shows up every year, and also they're just throwing ladies at you, and they're like, you're gonna come live with us, right? And like do the thing every year. Because O'Brien lives on the space station like 2 hours away. He could totally show up every year if you absolutely needed him to. There's no reason that he would have to move in and have you throwing ladies at him. So I feel like in that context, it doesn't make that much sense. Mm-hmm. And with what we know about the Bajorians, it doesn't make that much sense. Yeah, as it would if it was just like a one-shot planet. But I guess
I didn't think about that. But yeah, you're right. Like in the context of this show, O'Brien could easily just be like, yeah, whatever. I'll tell this stupid story, and then I'll go home, and I'll come back next year, unless I get transferred.
Yeah. Or die because of an attack or something. That happens. But
in that case, the Syrah, the Dal'Rok will kill all of you. Anyway, good luck.
Bye now.
Yeah. I definitely feel like this is an abuse of prophets and orbs. That's the show's version of magic, and I think we need to be very, very careful with it. Not be having smoke monsters all over the place, like attacking villages and stuff.
And apparently in some novels that come up later, like some bad guys get it into their head to go down and steal the piece of the orb so that they can summon the Dal'Rok to do stuff for them. Uh-huh. And I was like, that makes so much sense. That is so much more useful as like a weapon to use somewhere, because apparently no one can do anything about it unless you know the trick of like yelling at it. who was going to do that? Like, who's going to try to hype up a whole bunch of people to go at this guy if they don't know the trick? So, like, if I'm Cisco and say an enemy force was going to occupy the station at some point in the future, I'd be like, hey, let's go down and get this thing and, like, leave it behind to attack the bad guys after we're gone. That would be great.
So that thing of it being in a book brings up a point I want to come back to in a second. But first, I want to say they really need to just confiscate that bracelet with the orb fragment in it. 100%. And, like, tell the villagers, like, the Dal'Rok is not real, or just, like, we killed the Dal'Rok once and for all, if you really need to hear that. But it's like, that orb fragment needs to be wherever the other orb went. Which, that was a line that kind of, like, stuck out to me, because at one point he's like, oh yeah, we used to have one of those orbs. I was like, used to? What happened to that orb that the Kaiopaka gave you?
Yeah, I think they sent it back to Bajor or something. Like, I feel like this has been mentioned, I don't remember 100%.
Maybe I just forgot about it.
But yeah, I feel like when Dax first got it, the deal was that they weren't going to have it for that long. Cisco was like, you need to do this research on it because we're not going to have it that long.
So it was just on loan or whatever?
I think so.
So and they need to give that to, like, the High Temple or whatever, at least the Dal'Rok summoning bracelet, because
this is a very precious, like, part of Bajor's history and culture. Random guys shouldn't have it to make Smoke attack their village in order for unity, or also there's got to be a better way to keep your people in your village from killing each other than we need to unite against the common foe of the Dal'Rok.
I mean, just do what everybody does and, like, tell an ancient story and have a statue or something. I don't know.
Like, I want to see O'Brien, like, pull out his phaser and just shoot it and use the orb to, like, dissipate it or whatever. Be like, yes, we have finally defeated the Dal'Rok. No one thought to use a phaser on it until I did. You're welcome.
I would have liked that ending.
Yeah. Also, just on the subject, random peeve as we went through the episode is that, like, old dude calls it, like, the Dal'Rok, and then O'Brien, every time he refers to it, he's like, the Dal'Rok. Like, he's stressing the other syllable, and I'm just like, how do you know that's not the problem? Maybe that's why you're failing, is you refuse to pronounce the name of the monster correctly.
I mean, that happens all the time on Star Trek, though, so...
It's true, yeah.
You'd think they'd have, like, a pronunciation, like, a person whose job was just that.
Well, yeah, but I mean, like, if it's just some random guy visiting the station... Sure, they might be annoyed. I mean, for all you know, they could be different in their language if you're stressing the wrong syllable. It could mean something completely different. But I'm saying with, like, weird magical monster that you have to make a speech to get rid of, maybe pronunciation's relevant to the spell that you're casting or whatever. Maybe you should consider that.
Get that guy to coach you on, like, maybe there's, like, a hidden glottal stop or something. You never know. So, yeah, the point, so you're mentioning, so it comes back in the book, and that blows my mind because... What I have written down is, so when we were talking last time, you brought up the book, what's it called? Rising Sun?
Yeah, that sounds right.
It's part of a whole series where Kaiopaka comes back and all this stuff. I looked into it.
Yeah.
But that book also has Tosk in it?
Yeah, there's a Tosk that shows up, yeah.
Which I assume is the original Tosk from...
I just assumed it was a Tosk because we know that, like, there's multiple of them.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't even consider that it might be the same one, actually.
I figured it would be the Tosk because my whole point is, so many of these episodes in the first season, as we kind of discussed, like, they kind of leave these loose ends that kind of, like, beg to be followed up.
Yep.
So, I was talking about, I would watch, like, a whole series about the Tosk. And we were talking about, what happens to Kaiopaka is this huge, thing that makes you wonder. And so they wrote books about these to satisfy those kind of, like, itches.
Mm-hmm.
But I have written down, it's like, there's absolutely no loose ends I want to revisit from this episode. But apparently they did it anyway. So.
I don't need to come back to this at all. It's true. Yeah.
I don't need to know what happened with this village and their Dal'Rok problem.
It's such a weird thing because, like, there's these two stories that I think both have enough screen time that you could argue about which one is the A story because they both get a decent amount of screen time. And
yeah, that was actually, I went with, the Storyteller is the A story because it's the title story.
Because it's the title of the episode, right, yeah. But yeah. I just don't care about either one.
Yeah.
And I'm not even saying that like the story with the girl is not necessarily bad. It's an interesting take on this because she's just so bad at her job. And we're getting some Jake and Nog time, which we don't get that much of, honestly, because there's not that much for them to do. Mm-hmm. So bringing a young person who's relevant to the plot onto the station, letting them interact, and letting Nog actually show that he can come up with some decent, the Ferengi perspective is actually valid and helpful in some situations. Unlike, the Federation would have you kind of believe that we don't care what the Ferengi say because they're selfish and greedy and nobody whatever. But he's bringing in, it's like, no, actually negotiation.
Yeah,
I can help you here.
If you have something you want, if you have something somebody wants, that is a tool you can use to get something you want.
Yeah, and I mean it's so basic that the fact that she doesn't already know that is a glaring hole in the fact she's the leader of this like society and doesn't know the most basic principles of negotiating. But fine, you need to give Nog a way to make a difference in the story. You want to give them I wish it was something more than, hey, let's go rob Odo because it'll be quote unquote funny. But you're giving them some time to do stuff. I'm fine with that.
Sure.
But it's hard for me to care because both stories are so dumb.
I mean, I have written down the Jake and Nog stuff is the best stuff in the episode, and I don't necessarily mean that as a good thing.
Yeah, that's true.
And it's not clear to me what I'm supposed to get out of that whole story, other than maybe like a few amusing hijinks and antics. But yeah, like the girl learning to be a good leader or negotiator. First of all, I didn't really buy that she ever did become a good leader.
No, I mean she came up with she was able to accept that, hey, I can give up something to get something. I think that she has a lot more she needs to learn.
Yeah, she must have called back to Bajor and been like, hey, is there anything we want in the negotiations?
She did seem to have to think about it for a really long time.
After she was just looking at that map, it's like, what can I get for this?
Yeah, like she got the concept relatively early in the episode, and it was like most of the way through the episode before she's finally like, I know, here's something that I'll trade for.
Yep. It comes out of nowhere, so I don't know how she came. Like, well, she keeps going like, oh, I think I might have an idea. Oh. And you're like, oh, I kind of wonder what she's thinking. She's like, what if we got free trade access to the river? I was like, oh my gosh, okay. Which I'm sure, in the real world is a very good thing to have, but
yeah,
it did not, tickle my fancy that much.
It's basically you're giving them a break on import tariffs or something, which that's actually kind of basic international diplomacy stuff or international economic stuff there. So
yeah, it
makes sense that it would work here. But at the same time, I also feel like since Bajor has one big government, that sort of thing should already be addressed in how trade between different areas works. But maybe it is. Yeah. Maybe you're allowed to set your own tariffs or whatever.
I mean, we've heard many times that this provisional government is not very well set up.
We definitely haven't seen them do much of any use. So
yeah,
like they should be the ones showing up to stop the monster from attacking their village. Like,
yeah.
What are you doing if not that?
They're apparently fixing the aqueducts and stuff. I don't know.
So yeah.
Yeah, like in that story, I don't know if the girl who's the main character of that story? Is it the girl? Is it Jake? Is it Nog?
I guess it has to be the girl, right? Like she's the one that we follow, like when she's talking to Cisco, when she's talking to Jake and Nog, when she's doing various things.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the skeleton of a good little story is there, but the execution is just so weak.
It's really weird, and I'm getting into like rating now, but it's so strange to me because it doesn't feel like Dax did or some of the other episodes that I've rated really lowly, where it's just like there's so many plot holes that the plot barely even makes sense on some level. It doesn't feel like that to me, but it's getting towards that same level of bad because I'm just like, I don't care. This both of these stories are real. Why did I watch this episode?
Well, I don't. Yeah. So because that's my general summary of my opinion of the episode is like you look at an episode like Dax, and it's like got so many problems, but they had an idea, and they were trying to go for it.
Yeah.
But this, like, it doesn't even feel like they had any ambitions with this episode. They were just like, I don't know, a smoke monster attacks a village and a little girl has to negotiate some land dispute or something. Let's throw it together and move on to the next one.
Yeah, it's just like it feels like we're just messing around, making time, not accomplishing anything. I guess the one thing you can say they did accomplish is that we've, like, Bashir and O'Brien were forced to... I don't want to say develop their relationship, because quite honestly, when you get to the end of the episode, the relationship doesn't feel any different from what the relationship felt like at the beginning of the episode. It feels
in fact, they do a reset on it when Bashir says that O'Brien can call him sir again.
Yep. I was going to say, it almost feels like they took a step backward, where Bashir is no longer even pushing to have this relationship. It's just like, no, let's not be friends. But it got them into the same place to have some character interaction. And I think that's the most I can say we accomplished here.
Yeah, I mean, we know, like, there's some meat on that Bashir and O'Brien bone.
Yep.
But they did not find it this episode. It was all
bone. Because Bashir is still, like, the worst guy ever. Like, it's hard for anyone to build a relationship that you want to watch with Bashir, because he sucks and is annoying.
It's like, every time Bashir shows up, you kind of have this little, like, oh no.
Yeah, it's true. It's like in the last episode where he's just like, hey, I want to come. And he forces his way into the episode. And it's just like, oh, really? Did we need... Yeah, I don't even know when exactly his character changes. Spoiler, he's not going to be that guy forever.
Yeah.
But I can't wait for it to happen, because I didn't remember how annoying he was.
Yeah.
How just like insufferable in almost every way.
Yeah.
Where it's actually like when you get into this episode where we talked about if he'd been the one chosen, he would be sleeping with those girls. It's actually kind of creepy.
Yeah. I mean, no doubt with his character at this point.
Yeah, and I mean, we've talked about him being creepy before, like the way he comes on to basically anything that moves, but Jadzia specifically, and like is really aggressively creepy. At
least they've dialed that down.
Yeah, recently. I mean, that wasn't in this episode for sure, but I'm just saying, like, he's creepy.
Yeah.
And I don't like it.
Yep. And yeah, every time he's in an episode, it seems like he's like weaseled his way into the plot somehow. Almost to the point where it seems like the writers are doing it on purpose.
Yeah, because he's like, I mean, he's the one who has to go to the planet in this case.
Sure.
But he kind of, like, I almost get the impression that he's the one who insists that O'Brien is the one that goes with him. And maybe that's why Sisko's like, oh, you're taking him, because Bashir's like, oh, I want O'Brien.
He's like, oh, O'Brien's another main character, and, you know, maybe this will lead to a cool story.
Also, the whole conversation about calling him Sir or Julian, I'm like, wouldn't you just call him Doctor? Like, wouldn't...
Yeah, that's true.
That not only be, like, more respectful, but the thing that he would want people to be calling him generally?
Yeah. But at least, at one point, we go to Quark's bar, and Quark is hanging out with Morn. And my reaction was, thank God, it's Morn. And actually, we see Morn twice, because there's another part where we see him eating, like, a Jumja stick or something in the background.
I didn't catch that one.
Or, like, a candy apple. And he looks like he's really enjoying it, too. So.
Well, good for him. I'm trying to think, like, how many times have we actually visited Bajor since this series started?
The planet?
I feel like it hasn't been that many.
Where we've seen it?
Yeah.
I feel like there was in the pilot.
Yeah.
And this time, I feel like there was one time before this where we also asked that question, but I don't quite remember when it was.
I was saying, for the show Undeclared Bajor, like, we need to get back to Bajor.
Yeah, I declare we need some more Bajor. Okay, more points, or you want to jump into ratings?
I guess let's do ratings.
Okay, go ahead. What do you rate this episode?
I'm gonna have to give it an ensign also to go along with Dax and like what was the other one that I rated that? It was Move Along Home. Yeah. I'm gonna have to put it there, and like I said, it's weird to me because it doesn't feel as like it doesn't viscerally annoy me as much as Dax and Move Along Home. That was my issue with both of them, is they're just so full of holes that bother me so much. This one is just like apathy. Like I just don't care. I don't ever need to watch the episode again. That puts it on that same level, kind of.
Well, you know what it feels like to me? It feels like there's a guy with a bow and arrow, and Dax is the guy with the bow and arrow, aims at the target, and then lets it go, and the arrow completely misses the target.
Okay.
This episode feels like the guy with the bow and arrow aims directly at the ground, and let's go. And just the arrow just goes into the ground.
Yeah, no, he's like, they're barely even trying. Yeah, I see what you mean.
So you had Dax and Move Along Home. Where did you want to put it in relation to those?
I would probably put it above Dax.
Oh wow.
I guess. I mean, if I was going to have to watch one of them again, I would turn on this one and just be like, not care, as opposed to turn on Dax and then get mad. So...
Man, that is an interesting point. I think I also have to give it an ensign, but which would put it below Dax.
That's your first ensign, I think.
Yeah, but I'm fine with it being below Dax, even though you're right. Like, if I had to choose between watching one of these episodes, I don't know if I could make that choice. But yeah, it is definitely, I think, my bottom episode this season. I'm really comfortable calling it that, so...
Mm-hmm. And this is one where, like, my memory of the episode from whenever the last time I watched it, it was just, like, overwhelmingly negative. I didn't even remember the details necessarily. I just remember being like, ugh, that episode. I don't want to get to that. This whole
episode, I kept having to remind myself, like, okay, let's give it a fair shake. Like, I was like, I remember really hating this episode, but, like, let's be fair, try to find the good in it. But it just was not there for me.
This is a time where my memory of the episode is kind of borne out. Like, when we did Move Along Home, I was like, I remember this episode as being, like, dumb but fun, and I'm not finding the fun. This one is like, this is exactly what I remember, is that I don't like it.
Yeah, I totally forgot that the whole land dispute plot was in this episode. I just remembered the stupid, like, Dalrock fighting stuff.
Yep, yeah, I mean, as soon as she shows up, I'm like, oh yeah, it's the one where the girl's the leader of the, I got it.
And she hangs out with Jake and Nog,
but before the episode started, I didn't remember that at all.
These two stories are just like, they should not go in the same episode together.
I think that just both of them have so little, like, meat on this bone, as you were saying, that it's like, you had to find something to put each of them with that would, like, take up half of an episode. Yeah. Because there's not a full episode's worth of story in either one.
So it's, I guess they were like, should we, this is kind of a weak story. Should we, like, pair this with something stronger? And they're just like, you know what? Let's throw them both together.
It's like a Simpsons Treehouse of Horror episode where it's just like, you got 3 stories and none of them are long enough, so you throw them all into the same thing. Although, as I recall, when they're making those, the problem is that, like, they come up with too much material and they have to cut it way down to fit into all one episode. But still,
still better than some early Next Gen episodes, though.
Yeah,
that's
yeah, you're not wrong. There's some season 1 Next Gen episodes are definitely way worse than this.
I remember because I went to go get a screenshot from one of those early episodes, like that first Ferengi episode.
Yep, Last Outpost.
I was like, oh Jesus,
it's not good. Like, hold on, I'm gonna go to Next Generation season 1 now, and we're gonna take a quick look because the Naked Now is bad. It's not that bad.
Yeah.
Code of Honor, that's the one where, like, Tasha Yar gets abducted by the Black Society.
Sure.
That one is horrible and racist. So, the Last Outpost, that is also kind of racist and not good. Where No One Has Gone Before, I don't hate that one as much as some of the other ones. The one where Wesley gets on trial in the Society of People Who Don't Wear Many Clothes, that one's got an interesting, like the premise of these laws being different and having to respect. I feel like that sets the precedent for a lot of what happens in Next Generation going forward, is the way that they have to treat these societies.
Yeah.
I don't like the episode itself very much.
Yeah, and it's just, it's Wesley, so.
The Big Goodbye, where they get trapped in the Dixon Hill program, is, once again, it establishes the malfunctioning holodeck thing, which becomes a big thing, but it's also a stupid episode.
Yeah. What a terrifying, horrible thing the holodeck can be.
Yeah. What else? I forget about the one where they kidnap the kids. The Sterile Planet kidnaps their kids. That's actually not a bad episode, but it's kind of forgettable.
Yeah, it's so forgettable. I don't even remember it.
Let me think. The Klingons show up. That one's whatever. Armis. I don't hate Armis as much as
that was in season 2, wasn't it?
No, that's the third to last episode of season 1.
Oh wow.
Skin of Evil. Or the fourth to last episode. The fact that there's a, let's see, Conspiracy is actually pretty good. The Neutral Zone, the last episode of season 1, I actually kind of like.
Oh yeah, that's the one where they find the people.
Yeah, from the past.
20th century people, and they're like, oh boy, what a crazy future this is. And the Romulans show up.
Yep.
Yeah,
so actually,
that was okay.
By the time you're getting to the end of season 1, they're not so bad. It's the first half of season 1. There's just a lot of crap.
Yeah. And I think, Next Gen had to go through that so we could have a little bit of a more even first season for Deep Space Nine.
That's true. You got a lot of the same people who worked on Next Generation. They're kind of already in the groove of doing some Star Trek. Yeah. They kind of know what they're doing. The universe is a little better established.
Yeah, it's like we're not having a crazy reboot and reset on the universe.
Exactly.
We're in the same universe. We even already established some of the Cardassian Bajor and stuff. So it's like, just run with it. So
yeah. We're still way good compared to season 1 of the Next Generation, but that doesn't mean that, you can't have some bad episodes.
Yeah. Anyway, I don't want to go on any tangents this episode. It's like we already went on a tangent with what we recorded earlier. So
that's true. Yep.
Watch that thing. Probably uploaded last Saturday from your point of view.
Flavors of Quark, episode 2.
Flavors of Quark, episode 2. I don't know what to call that. Stock photo disaster.
Oh, I just brought up, I just realized you uploaded the first Flavors of Quark, and so I like the warning at the beginning of it.
Oh yeah, I forgot I put that in there.
Some might say it's not edited down enough. I like it. Okay.
Yep. Let me check stats, see what we're doing.
We have 2 views on that.
Yep. Wow, 18 seconds of view time. Wow. Anyway, yeah, I just don't want to talk about this episode anymore. I don't...
Yeah, we've had enough. It's so strange because even when I was looking through the wiki, it's got, background information on the story, the cast and crew. There's almost nothing about the story with the girl and the thing. It's all about, the Bashir and O'Brien story.
Yeah.
They can't even come up with something to say about it. It's so sad. Interesting. So hold on. There's one thing in here that I found under the reception, because Michael Piller says one of the big problems with this script, which is why it didn't appeal to anybody, is because it was not about any of our characters. We're just watching events happen and putting O'Brien in the middle and saying you have to solve it, which I guess that's true.
That is very true. We
were talking about who is the trade negotiation story even about, and we were like, I'm not sure. So yeah, it's true. It's really not about any of our people.
I think the thing to do would be to spin it because it should be a Nog episode or a Nog story.
Yeah,
Nog having this crush and then realizing he actually has some something to offer, this girl being way out of his league in every single way. And realizing he does have a little bit to offer, so I don't know. Okay, we got to end this episode.
Yeah.
Unless there's something else you want to talk about.
Nope, I'm good.
Okay, yep. So that does it for us today. If you've made it this far, thank you for listening. Be sure to check out the description where I occasionally put links to interesting things. So, what would I put in this episode?
There's nothing interesting.
Yeah, should gotta be something we talked about. Nope, there's not. I'm Fletcher. About to say goodbye is Data.
See ya.
May you all outsmart the hunters for one more day, and if not, die with honor. But either way, please remember to drop by anytime you're feeling homesick. Boom, 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 boom.